All right, guys, let's get into some climate change news because we are, it's getting late in the day. This first up from the BBC News, how the oil industry made us doubt climate change. Is there any doubt that the oil industry made us doubt climate change? As climate change becomes a focus for the U.S. election, and it is a focus, even though the Democrats, if you still believe the Democrats are going to do jack shit for you, I don't know. Maybe sit down and think about that one for a second. As climate change, energy companies stand accused of trying to downplay their contribution to global warming. In June, Minnesota's Attorney General sued ExxonMobil, among others, for launching a campaign of deception, which deliberately tried to undermine the science supporting global warming. So what's behind these claims? And what links them to how the tobacco industry tried to dismiss the harms of smoking decades earlier? Well, we've seen this same article over and over and over again. This is nothing new. We all understand this is happening. To understand what's happening today, we need to go back nearly 40 years. Do we really? Marty Hoffert leaned closer to his computer screen. He couldn't quite believe what he was seeing. In 1981, he was working in the area of science considered niche. Or niche, whatever you want. We were just a group of geeks with some great computers, he says now, recalling the moment, but his findings were alarming. I created a model that showed the Earth would be warming very significantly, and the warming would introduce climatic changes that would be unprecedented in human history. That blew my mind. Well, that actually, people were doing that before 1981 there, guy. But whatever. Marty Hoffert, you were early, yet you were late. Marty Hoffert was one of the first scientists to create a model which predicted the effects of man-made climate change. And he did so while working for Exxon, one of the world's largest oil companies, which would later merge with another, Mobil. At the time, Exxon was spending millions of dollars on groundbreaking research. It wanted to lead the charge as scientists grappled with the emerging understanding that the warming planet could cause the climate to change in ways that could make life pretty difficult for humans. That's going to be difficult there. Hoffert shared his predictions with his managers, showing them what might happen if we continued burning fossil fuels in our cars, trucks, and what? Planes. Hold on one second, guys. Had Vollmer, yes. James Hansen, too. Right. Let's go back. But he noticed a clash between Exxon's own findings and public statements made by company bosses, such as then Chief Executive Lee Raymond, who said that currently the scientific evidence is inconclusive as to whether human activities are having a significant effect on global climate. They were saying things that were contradicting their own world-class research groups, said Hoffert. Oh my God, why would they do this? Yeah, my name's Marty Hoffert. What they did was immoral. They spread doubt about dangers of climate change when their own researchers were confirming how serious a threat it was. So what changed? The record-breaking hot summer of 1988 was key. Big news in America. It gave extra weight to warnings from NASA scientist Dr. Jim Hansen that the greenhouse effect has been detected and is changing our climate now. Political leaders took notice. Oh, did they now? Then UK Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher acknowledged the great new global threat. The environmental challenge, which confronts the whole world, demands an equivalent response from the whole world. Well, she did something great about it, didn't she? What was it? Oh, that's right, nothing. In 1989, Exxon strategy chief Dwayne Levin drew up a confidential presentation for the company's board, one of thousands of documents in the company's archive that were later donated to the University of Texas at Austin. Levine's presentation is an important document often cited by researchers investigating Exxon's record on climate change science. We're starting to hear the inevitable call for action, it said, which risk what it called irreversible and costly draconian steps. More rational responses will require efforts to extend the science and increase emphasis on costs and political realities. So what they're saying, Kurt Davies has scoured through Exxon's archive. He used to work as a research director at the environmental pressure group, Greenpeace, where he looked into corporate opposition to climate change. This inspired him to set up the Climate Investigations Center. He explains why this Exxon presentation mattered. They were worried the public will take this on and enact radical changes in the way we use energy and affect their business. That's the bottom line. He says this fear can also be seen in another document from the archive that sets out the so-called Exxon position, quote unquote, which was to emphasize the uncertainty regarding climate change. Emphasize the uncertainty in scientific conclusions regarding the potential enhanced greenhouse effect and urge a balanced scientific approach. So the balanced scientific approach itself can be used against itself. See how that works? Anyways, we all know the story, guys. We all know the story. This is a story that goes on and on and on. They just keep, every couple of months they reprint a story saying the same thing. They knew all about it, and they funded a disinformation campaign. Can you believe it? Oh my God. Listen, that's exactly what is happening right now. They don't want you to know. They don't mind if you know that climate change is a real thing. They also don't mind if there's lots of climate change denial channels out there and people out there saying like, well, climate is always changing. We're not totally sure. They like that too. They want people confused about the science, right? That's intentional. And they also just don't want you to know how bad it is. So if they can make you think that like, well, the earth might be, a half a degree hotter in 2050. We've really got to stop burning fossil fuels by 2050. Right? And that is the public position, even in the Democratic Party, like, that somehow we're going to get to net zero by 2050. And we got 30 whole years, but 30 whole years is a lot of administrations and a lot of turnover in Congress and Senate, right? To the point where people were like, weren't we working on climate change? This is like in 2030. Weren't we doing something about climate change? Yeah, we were doing something, but the administration changed and things went over here and then we went over here and then this happened and all of a sudden it was 10 years later. And that's what's been happening. That is exactly what's been happening for the last 40 years. And that will continue to happen for the next 30 years or 40 years until people are like, eating, sifting through mud to eat bugs, right? That's, people are going to be like, wasn't somebody looking for a way to fight this climate change thing? When the last few humans are huddling in caves, then we'll know that, these climate change plans were really substantive. Oceanic Estate, yes. SpongeBob, 10 years later. You're right. Exactly. I mean, 10 years is going to go by real fast. It's going to be like, Trump won another thing. Oh, my God, we got to get a Democrat in. It's 2024, right? See how fast that's going to go? We got to get another Democrat in. We might get a Democrat. We might get a Democrat. Then all of a sudden it's going to be 2028. 4 years into this Democratic, administration. What are we doing about climate change? Oh my God. It's going to happen so fast. Tor Wootendahl, we are still looking for new oil fields to exploit. Indeed. Exactly. Joe Biden just said in Pennsylvania, oh, don't believe this Trump line that I'm going to ban fracking. Don't believe that. I'm absolutely not banning fracking. It's 2020. It is 2020. We're supposed to be carbon neutral really by 2030, not 2050. And Joe Biden's like, trust me, guys, I'm not going to get rid of fracking. It's 2020. So if Joe Biden gets elected, let's say Joe Biden wins this presidential election. Ain't nothing going to change for the next 4 years, guys. Ain't nothing going to change for the next 4 years. Then it's 2024. Then who knows? Is it another Republican? Is it another Democrat? Does Biden win another term? Then it's 2028. Nothing happened for 8 years, guys. Nothing happened. I'm telling you right now, nothing's going to happen. Unless something radical happens. Radical. I mean, radical. Not like, oh, we're going to vote for some progressives, and we might get 10 progressives in Congress, and by 2028, we might have, 15. Boiled rope lamppost, indeed. My main takeaway from 2020 politics is that I need a wine cave, indeed. Because you're not really living unless you've got a wine cave, sir. I'd like a two-bedroom, half-bath cave. Yes, Kevin Woolard, indeed. Fee and dividend, no. Keith Hayes, no. I'm sorry. I'm going to look at this right now. Let's look at this fee and dividend thing. Bipartisan carbon fee. Look. I'm going to tell you right now that the big reason why this is not going to work is it says bipartisan. So you're telling me that something that Republicans and Democrats agree upon is going to change the future of the planet. It's going to get us to a place where we are going to be carbon free by 2050, right? They're saying 90% gas emissions by 90% by 2050. Man, I'm telling you, I just don't see it. I don't know if we can have a more substantive debate on that, Keith Hayes. I mean, maybe it does something, but I'm telling you right now that something that is supported by both Democrats and Republicans is probably something that allows the fossil fuel industry to just continue on. That's really the point of it, right? You guys go ahead, but what we're going to do is charge you a little money every year, a little more money every year, and then we're going to take that money and we're going to put it over here, and then 10 years later, I don't know. I really just don't see it, man. I just really don't see it. And on top of that, it's just a bill. It's just a bill that's been introduced. Nobody's passed this bill. Has this bill been up for a vote? Is this bill going to get up for a vote in Biden's administration? Absolutely not. Is it going to get up for a vote in Trump administration? Absolutely not. So you're talking about something that's supposed to do something that probably won't get passed until possibly the middle of this decade. And I'm going to tell you right now, won't even get passed until 2028. And so, too late. It's already too late. Too late. It sounds good, Keith Hayes. The money goes straight to you. It sounds good. I'm going to say, when are they going to pass this bill? Are they going to pass it? They're not going to pass it. If Biden wins, they're not going to pass it. I'm telling you straight up, they're not going to pass it. If Trump wins, they're not going to pass it. Straight up, they're not going to pass it. So you're talking about something that's not going to happen, at least for 10 years. I don't see it. I don't see it. Unapologetic Vegan says the government subsidized tobacco until 2004. Yes. 2004. That wasn't that long ago. Keith Hayes says, it is in their face. I'm not saying it's going to pass. Well, I don't see it as, I'm sorry to be pessimistic, but I just don't see it. I just don't see it. And the fact that it says bipartisan on the top of it means, that means bipartisan screwing. Whenever you see the term bipartisan, that means working together. We're going to work together to screw you and the planet. Like, that's really what that means. So, I just don't see it. But I like the optimism. Um, I think we need something way more radical, Keith Hayes. Just way, 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 like not even like outside of what anybody can conceptualize right now. Rich Diana, I believe that in 2025, massive amounts of environmental legislation will be passed, but in chaos and panic. Yes, yes, yes. If something gets passed, it's because something will have already happened that we'll already be on the downward slide. We'll be sliding off the cliff. But if we're not sliding off the cliff, no passing, no passing. Just a football, just a political football. Here you go. Oh, we can't possibly do that. Oh, here you go. Okay. I'm sorry. I've dawdled too long, as they say in England. What am I going to read now? Well, let's let's get into all these promises that people. This is the last one I'm going to read today, guys. But let's get into all these promises that the elites make. Oh, we're on the case. We're going to do this, guys. We really believe that climate change is a real thing and it's a real problem, and we're going to do something. So Bezos. Remember when the Democrats said we have this $2 trillion climate plan, but then they snuck, they had a provision to stop subsidies to fossil fuel companies, and in the middle of the night when nobody was looking, they took that out of the DNC platform because, well, we can't stop subsidies to fossil fuel companies. Remember that? Okay, Bezos breaks his climate pledge. Of course he did. The richest man in the world hasn't issued a single grant for the $10 billion climate fund he announced 7 months ago. I wore a rose embroidered jean jacket on television yesterday to explain how our addiction to fossil fuels is fueling extreme weather across the country. This is by Emily Atkin at heated.world. The channel was Cheddar News, which broadcasts on the same cable networks and on TV streaming services. I also gave viewers a peek into my disheveled apartment, which includes a hanging ceiling lamp cord draped around a squat rack. Anyways, it was just the latest in a string of recent media hits about climate change. On Monday, I did an 11-minute interview about climate change and coronavirus with WBUR, Boston's Here and Now, and last week, New York City's public radio station WNYC gave me a whole 18 minutes to talk about how climate change is worsening wildfire seasons and how people can prevent further destruction. It's cool to see news outlets recognize the dire nature of the climate crisis and devote time to it, even in this fairly late hour. What's not cool, though, is the continued failure by other extremely powerful people and institutions to recognize the urgency of the moment we're in. Today's issue is about one of this newsletter's favorite powerful people, the richest man in the world. Amazon founder and CEO Jeff Bezos has made $73 billion during this year's pandemic and record-breaking extreme weather season. Yet he has failed to announce a single grant for that $10 billion climate fund he so loudly announced 7 months ago. We're on the case, guys. We're on the case 7 months later. 7 months later. 3 years later. According to a report from E&E News on Monday, the Amazon founder and CEO promised in February to pour at least $10 billion of his personal fortune into fighting climate change and said that the effort would begin issuing grants this summer. It is September 23rd. It is now fall. It's actually officially fall now. Tuesday is the first day of fall, and the Bezos Earth Fund, as he dubbed the venture, has yet to announce a single grant. Further, there's been little public evidence of much other work or spending. Amazon did not respond to E&E's news requests for such evidence. A spokesperson wouldn't even go on the record to decline comment. Bezos' wealth now sits at $182 billion. And I'm sitting on a couch I got from my parents' basement, see photo above, wondering why I ever felt climate guilt for anything in my life. Jeff Bezos earned his fortune at the expense of the planet's livability. The more cars, trucks, and planes that carried his company's boxes, the more cheap petrochemical-based plastic products his company sold, the more energy-intensive data centers his company operated, the more money Bezos made. The West Coast is now in flames. The Gulf Coast is now waterlogged. And Bezos is now the richest man in the world. And in some people's eyes, he's a climate hero. Is he? Is he? In whose eyes? Because he promised to spend $10 billion solving climate change. And this, my friends, is exactly why rich people and corporations make voluntary climate pledges. It makes them seem benevolent and wonderful. And there's no consequence if they never follow through. The Bezos bro army. I'll never forget writing about Bezos's $10 billion climate pledge back in February. I made what I thought was a pretty even-handed and complex critique, applauding the effort for its positive potential, but putting it in context of Bezos's proportionate responsibility and wealth, noting how billionaires use philanthropy to boost their own reputations. Among other things, I noted that a $10 billion pledge amounted to approximately 7.7% of Bezos' fortune at the time, and that for a normal young person in America under 35 years old, this would be the equivalent of donating $847. Which is a lot of money to some people, but, not that much money in total. I tweeted this detail, and an army of Bezos bros latched onto it as if it were the teat off Jeff himself. They descended on my internet presence in a coordinated harassment effort, the pure volume of which was unlike anything I'd experienced. Someone asked, how much did you donate for climate change? Dumb B. And shut the F up. You've been donating $400 million a year. Are you effing dumb? Oh, have you been donating $400 million a year? Are you effing dumb? Just because he's rich doesn't mean he has to give all his money. Effing snowflake, have you donated $400 million? Be thankful that he's supporting it. Greedy B. Etc., etc. It goes on and on. I'm not sure how many of these people are even real, but to me it showed just how powerful and effective the moral cover of philanthropy can be. These people really think Bezos is a climate saint. Absolutely incredible. Anyways, it's 7 months later now, and Bezos' fortune has ballooned. His $10 billion climate pledge now represents just 5% of his wealth, or the equivalent of about $555 to the average young American. This isn't even a fair comparison because $555 is far more important to the average American. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, that's a lot of money to people that don't have any money, but $10 million to Jeff Bezos is absolutely nothing. Bezos made $13 billion in a single day this year during the third hottest June ever recorded. A $10 billion promise is nothing to Jeff Bezos and everything to the planet. But even over the course of a year of record-breaking personal profits, not to mention a record-breaking hurricane and wildfire season, he couldn't be bothered to fulfill it. And why would he really? We allowed Bezos to hoard the Earth's wealth at the Earth's expense, applauded him for giving up a tiny bit to help, let him decide how to help, how the help would be distributed, then gave ourselves no recourse for when that help never came. This is what happens when we depend on voluntary philanthropy from rich white dudes to solve massive problems that disproportionately harm poor brown people. There's no accountability when they decide it's not worth their time. Of course, Bezos could announce all the grants tomorrow, and my critique would be moot. I'd be fine with that. The faster the money comes, the more positive impact it can have for the people who are suffering the most, which, to be clear, do not include Bezos. Alternatively, the longer it takes, the less meaningful it becomes. Either way, I'm sure I'll have to lock my Instagram account now. Let the Bezos bro army invasion begin. And this is actually why I have no optimism around the fee and dividend bill, because it's kind of the same thing. It's like, hey, we have this great idea. We're gonna really help the planet with this great idea, and then we're never gonna pass it. We may never even bring it up to vote on the floor of the Senate. We got this great idea, guys. We're working on it. We're working on it, guys. We're working on it, guys. We have this great idea because we're working on it, guys. Right? And then it gets shot down, and then the next president, it doesn't even get voted on, or it gets voted down, and they're like, well, we'll try again when the next president comes in. And maybe when the next president comes in, oh my God, it's 2032, right? Anyways, whatever. J. Thadcast, money doesn't solve this problem. Indeed, money is the cause of the problem. Exactly. Although, done right, money could help the problem, but it's got to be done in a way that nobody really even, again, can conceptualize at this very moment. Because everything that everybody is conceptualizing is, well, how do we keep business as usual going? How do we keep people buying stuff and the economy going? And how do we keep people flying in planes? How do we keep people driving cars? Hey guys, remember to like, share, and subscribe, and you can support the channel at the links below, PayPal, Patreon, Square. Also, if you'd like to watch the live streams, you can watch the live streams on my Patreon channel. You can subscribe for as little as $1. So hopefully I will see you over there, and thanks so much.